Hello there.
You're home early?
Yeah. Your physical force like I'm pinned at the core, where things change, you know. Do you ever get that way about me, Jen?
Okay, maybe it's time to really talk.
No.
No?
No. I love you.
Your wife, is she here? She all right?
I don't think she is. I shot her. Are you listening to me, Rob?
The story begins with Theodore Crawford. Everyone calls him Ted, a brilliant aeronautics engineer living the kind of life most people only dream about. Behind the gates of his sprawling California mansion, Ted has everything money and intelligence can buy. He's a man other engineers look up to, a man clients trust with million-dollar contracts, a man who seems to have solved every problem life could throw at him. And on paper, his marriage to Jennifer completes that picture perfectly. A beautiful wife, a beautiful home, a beautiful life. But paper doesn't tell the whole truth. Behind closed doors, the Crawford marriage has gone cold. There are no screaming matches, no slammed doors, no obvious cracks for the outside world to see. Just silence. A quiet, hollow, procedural kind of silence. The kind that settles into a relationship when two people have stopped truly seeing each other. And it's in that silence that something far more dangerous than an argument begins to grow. Ted finds out his wife is having an affair. Not with a stranger, not with someone she met at a bar, but with a police lieutenant named Rob Nunali, a man sworn to protect and serve, now secretly serving something else entirely. Here's where most husbands would fall apart. Scream, confront her on the spot, pack a bag and storm out. Ted does none of that. Instead, he goes quiet, unsettlingly quiet. Because Ted isn't a man who reacts emotionally to betrayal. He's a man who processes it. Calculated. Turns it over in his mind the way an engineer studies a flaw in a blueprint before deciding exactly how to fix it. And what he's quietly building toward will end up destroying far more than just his marriage. One ordinary afternoon, Ted ends a business meeting early, doesn't even stay long enough to hear his client's feedback on the work they came to discuss, and drives straight toward a hotel where he suspects Jennifer and Rob are meeting. But before he ever steps inside, he pulls over at a payphone. He dials the local police station, asks, very casually, for Lieutenant Rob Nunali, and he learns exactly what he needs to know. Rob is scheduled to be on duty that night. Satisfied, almost pleased, Ted hangs up and walks into the hotel like a man who already knows precisely how this story is going to end. He finds them by the pool, laughing, relaxed, completely unaware that they're being watched by the one person who should never have discovered their secret. Ted doesn't storm over and confront them. He simply stands back and observes, studying the scene the way he'd study test data, cataloging it, filing it away. Then, quietly, he slips inside, finds their hotel room, and stands there for a long, silent moment staring at the disheveled bed, as if trying to locate the exact moment his marriage started dying. And then he leaves. No confrontation, no scene, no trace that he was ever there at all. Meanwhile, Rob has absolutely no idea that his secret world is about to collapse. He's not just having an affair, he's falling in love, really falling, and he wants more than stolen afternoons behind a hotel door. He asks Jennifer to dinner, wanting to finally be seen with her in public, to build something real. But Jennifer panics. Being seen with Rob anywhere outside their secret hideaway could unravel everything she's worked so hard to hide. She deflects his offer, changes the subject, and rushes to get home before her husband, hoping, praying, that she can beat him there. She doesn't. When Jennifer walks through the gates of their mansion, she pauses to greet their gardener, Cairo, exchanging a few friendly words like it's just another ordinary evening. But the moment she steps inside, her heart drops. Ted is home. Hours before his usual time, sitting there, waiting for her. And he's calm. Too calm. He starts talking, not about where she's been, not with accusations, but about his feelings. About marriage. About everything that's gone unsaid between them for years. And then he asks the one question Jennifer can never honestly answer without destroying everything. Do you still love me? Jennifer fights to keep her composure. She excuses herself to the kitchen, hoping that if she just keeps moving, keeps busying her hands with dinner, the interrogation will quietly fade away. But Ted isn't finished. He follows the thought all the way through, calmly asking her if her lover loves her back. In that single sentence, Jennifer's entire secret life comes crashing down around her. She begins to stammer an apology, and Ted shoots her, point-blank range. No warning, no scream of rage. Just cold, mechanical, devastating violence, delivered with the same detachment he might use to flip a switch on one of his engineering projects. Outside, Cairo hears the gunshot and sprints to the front door, pounding on it, frantically begging to know if everyone inside is okay. Ted ignores him entirely. He walks upstairs, showers, changes his clothes, and methodically burns every article of clothing he was wearing. Treating the aftermath of his wife's murder with the same clinical precision he'd apply to erasing a failed experiment. By the time police finally swarm the property, Cairo has already told them everything he witnessed and heard. And then comes one of the most chilling twists early in this story. The officer sent to the scene as the hostage negotiator is Lieutenant Rob himself, Jennifer's secret lover. He has absolutely no idea what he's about to walk into. Ted, disturbingly composed, unlocks the gate and invites Rob inside, asking to speak with him privately. The two men agree to lower their weapons and talk it through like reasonable adults. Rob asks about Jennifer. Cairo mentions she might be hurt. And Ted, without a flicker of hesitation, casually admits that he got agitated and shot her. Rob rushes toward the body crumpled on the floor and freezes in horror. Because the woman he's been secretly falling in love with is the same woman now bleeding out in front of him. Watching this unfold, Ted can't resist making a cruel, mocking remark. And that's the final straw. Rob explodes, lunging at him with everything he has until fellow officers wrestle him off. Ted is arrested. Rob, meanwhile, is treated like a hero for subduing a dangerous suspect. Nobody in that room yet understands the devastating truth about his real connection to the victim. Jennifer, against all odds, is still clinging to life as paramedics rush her to the hospital. And as Rob steps outside to catch his breath, stunned and shattered, he catches Ted smiling at him. Actually smiling. Like everything, every single moment of this nightmare, went exactly according to plan. Now let's meet the man who's about to spend the rest of this story trying to outthink a killer who always seems to be 3 steps ahead of everyone in the room. William Willie Beecham is a rising star district attorney with an enviable conviction record and a bright future ahead of him. He's just landed his dream job at a prestigious law firm, Wooten and Sims, and he's more than ready to trade the grind of prosecuting for a shinier, more glamorous life. His boss, D.A. Joe, practically begs him to stay, reminding him how much the office needs someone with his talent. But Willie's decision is final. He spent his entire career working toward this exact opportunity, and he's not turning back now. Then, almost as an afterthought, Willie gets handed one last case before he walks out the door for good. An open and shut murder with a spontaneous, signed confession already sitting in the file. It should take no time at all. He shows up to the arraignment still dressed in his tuxedo from a work event the night before, expecting nothing more than a quick, forgettable formality. Instead, Ted turns the entire courtroom upside down. He pleads not guilty. He announces he wants to represent himself. And when Willie tries to talk sense into him, warning him how badly stacked the evidence is against him, Ted simply stares, fixated, oddly, on Willie's crooked bow tie, as though that tiny imperfection is somehow the most pressing issue in the room. Unnerved, Willie fixes it. Ted smiles, satisfied, like he's just won a small but meaningful victory. Then he asks the judge to skip the preliminary hearing entirely and go straight to trial, a request so strange it leaves the entire courtroom stunned. And just when Willie thinks he's off the case for good, Ted specifically requests that he, this exact young prosecutor, be the one to try him. Outside the courtroom, Lieutenant Rob quietly pulls Willie aside with a warning that will echo through everything that follows. There is something deeply, dangerously wrong with this man. That evening, at a lavish charity gala celebrating his glamorous new future, Willie meets Nikki Gardner, a sharp senior associate who quickly becomes both his mentor and the reason the firm's CEO trusts him at all. But the celebration is cut short by an unsettling phone call. The gun recovered from the crime scene has never been fired. Ted never left the house that night, which means the real murder weapon should still be somewhere inside. Except it isn't anywhere to be found. It's the first crack in a case that looked completely airtight, and it will not be the last. As Willie tries to juggle his new corporate life with wrapping up his final case as a prosecutor, Ted continues playing mind games from behind bars, mocking discovery documents, hinting that he's hired a private investigator to dig into Willie's personal history, even offering him a substantial bribe to switch sides and defend him instead. Willie refuses every single time. Ted, entirely unbothered, simply reminds him, only guilty people need witnesses. When the trial finally begins, the evidence looks overwhelming. Cairo testifies that no one entered or left the house that night. Officers describe securing the perimeter. A forensic doctor details the catastrophic, irreversible damage to Jennifer's brain. Through it all, Ted sits calmly at the defense table, doodling, apparently disinterested in his own trial, until Lieutenant Rob takes the stand. Rob recounts Ted's chilling, spontaneous confession almost word for word. And then, for the very first time in the entire trial, Ted raises an objection. What comes out of his mouth next detonates the courtroom instantly. Ted reveals, in front of the judge, the jury, and everyone watching, that the arresting officer was sleeping with his wife. Dead silence. Total shock. Rob, exposed in the most humiliating way imaginable, lunges at Ted a second time and has to be physically restrained. And just like that, Ted's bizarre decision to represent himself pays off in the cruelest possible way. His confession is thrown out as coerced, obtained under duress from a compromised, emotionally involved officer. A case that looked unbeatable is now collapsing in real time, right in front of everyone. Cool as ever, Ted requests bail in time for the holidays. The judge, reluctantly, gives Willie a short window over the long weekend to find new evidence before reconvening. Furious and humiliated, Willie's boss at the law firm pulls him off the case entirely, hoping to contain the fallout before it spreads any further. But Willie can't let it go. Enraged that a killer is walking free and clearly enjoying every second of it, he fights to get the case back, even though doing so, and losing, could cost him his prestigious new job, his reputation, and his entire future. He takes the risk anyway. He tracks down Detective Flores, insisting they search the house one more time for the missing weapon. He finds Rob, broken, exposed, abandoned by his own family, hounded relentlessly by the media, and learns the full, painful details of his secret relationship with Jennifer. He visits the hotel where the affair unfolded and requests the security footage from the day of the murder. And in one of the story's quietest, most heartbreaking moments, he sits beside Jennifer's hospital bed, reading to her, desperately hoping she'll wake up and be able to testify. The doctors crush that hope almost instantly. Even if she somehow survives, the damage to her brain means she may never speak again. Just when the situation feels impossible, Rob shows up at Willie's house with an offer that could change everything. A contact in the evidence room who could quietly swap the planted shell casings for real ones. Willie refuses outright. He won't cross that line, no matter how desperate things have become. Then the hotel security footage finally arrives. It shows Ted, disguised beneath a large hat, entering the building on the exact day of the murder. Evidence that could prove he knew about the affair before he ever pulled the trigger. But the footage is too grainy, too easily disputed, to hold up under cross-examination. Willie refuses to risk his entire case on evidence that strong instincts, but weak legs, might not survive. That's when Rob, desperate and completely out of options, does something reckless. Without telling Willie the full truth, he plants the actual murder weapon back inside the house himself, letting Willie believe an honest breakthrough has finally arrived. On the morning the trial resumes, Willie sets up a signal with his assistant, Mona. If he calls her into the courtroom, it means new evidence has surfaced. But standing there before the judge, Willie simply can't bring himself to use evidence he suspects has been fabricated. He tells the court the truth. There is no new evidence. The case collapses completely. Ted walks free. He mocks both Willie and Rob on his way out of the courtroom. One final, cruel gesture before disappearing back into a life he was never supposed to reclaim. Willie, still reeling from the loss, receives a phone call from Nikki trying to comfort him. A conversation cut violently short by the sound of a gunshot ringing through the courthouse hallway. Rob, humiliated, exposed, stripped of his career, his family, and now the case that could have finally brought him justice, has taken his own life. Ted, when informed of the tragedy, feels absolutely nothing. He shrugs it off, drives home, and quietly congratulates himself on a plan executed to flawless perfection. The next morning, Ted walks into the hospital to visit the wife he tried to kill, and finds Willie there, keeping a lonely vigil at her bedside. In one of the story's most chilling power plays, Ted calmly reminds Willie that, as Jennifer's legal husband, he holds full authority over her life support, and he threatens to end it. Willie scrambles for a solution. He turns to Nikki for help navigating civil court, but she's finished covering for him. His obsession with this case is costing her credibility at the firm, and she cuts him loose entirely. He turns to his old boss, only to discover that Ted has already filed a restraining order against him. Once again, Ted is one devastating step ahead. Refusing to surrender, Willie goes over everyone's heads and begs Nikki's own father, a sitting judge, for an emergency order. The judge agrees, fully aware it likely won't survive an appeal. Willie races against the clock, running red lights, breaking every rule of the road to reach the hospital in time. He's too late. Jennifer dies, and with her dies the only witness who could have ever truly put Ted away. Willie is fired from both the law firm and the DA's office. Stripped of his career and his future in a single devastating stroke, He's left to sit with the crushing thought that his own miscalculation handed a killer his freedom. His old boss visits, offering his old job back, but Willie, still consumed by the case, turns him down. Instead, he throws himself into the files, determined to understand exactly how Ted outmaneuvered an entire courtroom. And then, the breakthrough. While reviewing evidence with Detective Flores, a small, seemingly meaningless mix-up involving a look-alike cell phone sparks something in Willie's mind. A memory. A detail he'd overlooked from the very beginning. Suddenly, he understands exactly how Ted got the murder weapon out of a house that police had surrounded the entire night. He swapped it, right under everyone's nose, with an identical, never-fired gun. A decoy hiding in plain sight the entire time. Willie confronts Ted directly, laying out the entire scheme piece by piece. And Ted, utterly unbothered, confident he's protected by double jeopardy, can't resist gloating. He confesses everything, in chilling detail, describing the satisfaction of pulling the trigger and watching Rob's world implode the moment he discovered Jennifer's body. But there's one thing Ted never accounted for. Willie calmly reminds him that he was originally tried for attempted murder because Jennifer was still alive throughout that trial. Now that she's died, the charge becomes murder, an entirely new case. No double jeopardy protection whatsoever. For the first time since this nightmare began, real fear crosses Ted's face. The man who always had an answer, who was always 3 moves ahead of everyone around him, finally understands he's been outplayed at his own game. As the new trial begins, Willie stands alone on the prosecution's side, calm, composed, and finally in control of the story he spent so long trying to catch up to. In a quiet, satisfying echo of their very first meeting, he signals Ted to fix his crooked tie one last time. And this time, it's Ted's hands that are shaking as he straightens it. This is one of those stories that reminds you evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it's calm, calculated, even charming, right up until the moment it destroys everything and everyone around it. Ted Crawford wasn't caught because he made a careless mistake. He was caught because one man refused to stop fighting, even after he'd lost absolutely everything. If this breakdown kept you hooked from that very first gunshot to the final twist, that's exactly the kind of story we love unpacking on this channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're missing breakdowns just like this one every week. It genuinely helps this channel grow when you take a second to hit that subscribe button, so if this video earned it, don't scroll away without doing it. And before you go, drop a comment below. Did you see the gun swap coming before Willie figured it out? And do you think Ted actually felt fear in that final scene, or was that one last performance? Let's talk about it in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.